we spoke about how it might get a little bit nerdier today. And this is something that I've wanted to do with you for a while is look at big managers, big players, big games that I would say most soccer fans are familiar with, and either compare the two or look at one really in detail. And so today, last week we kind of laid our allegiances out there. I'm rocking my Liverpool jacket today.
Yes, I love it.
So so I'd love to talk about kind of the preeminent rivalry in managing right now, which I would argue is Klopp and Guardiola. And Pep's kind of been at the top for a while since his days at Barcelona, and they kind of revolutionized things. And everywhere he's gone, he's had kind of a foil, I would say. I mean, in Germany, it was probably Klopp for a while when he was at Bayern, and Klopp at Dortmund and stuff. And so now with Liverpool and Man City, there's a lot to look at. But I have a few thoughts, and I think you can separate the two pretty clearly on a few things, but maybe less clearly on some others. So I guess I'll just open it up to you. What are your first impressions and thoughts on the similarities and differences of the two of them?
Well, first of all, me evaluating either of those guys in any way, shape, or form is not relevant. We all would love to play like those teams, and we all coach to try to do that, but it would be, again, very arrogant, and I'm not. These are arguably the two top coaches on the planet right now in the sport that we love and are passionate. And the fact that I've been a Liverpool fan since I was a little kid just makes it all the better, because it was a long time that I took lumps and listened to my Man U and Man City friends clown on me. But anyway, man, I love talking soccer, so that's for sure. Klopp, they use the term heavy metal football. Well, I was a metalhead in the 80s, man. I had my long hair and my mullets, and I still love that type of music. And it's just,
we've seen the pictures.
Yeah, well, I apologize. Right now I'm rocking the nasty beard, so I've definitely had my share of hair quaffs. But Klopp, he goes for it, man. It's high intensity. It's a counter pressing system. At Dortmund and at Liverpool, and they're all bought in. He's very much a personal man manager, at least from what I can see. I mean, I don't talk to Jurgen Klopp, but I watch and study, and I really enjoy watching his teams. And the players talk about him in a way that he says what needs to be said. He's very demanding, but any of the guys on the team could eat lunch together and it would be good. And that's rare, particularly at that level. And he obviously has great relationships with players. They matter to him more than just being someone that can score a goal or stop one. Guardiola, I mean, come on. Spain made a decision to change the way they played football, and for a long, long time they tried to win at the international level and got so close and didn't. And then there was a breakthrough. And I think one of the things that Guardiola, just my perspective, that he does well is he finds the players that are his top players. Like the difference between Barcelona, what I really noticed was when you have Xavi, Iniesta, and Messi in a triangle, that's your strength. You can go through that. That group of three players at their height could play through any group of players on the planet. And so they were able to play this possession-based dominating soccer and just wear teams down. It was just fun to watch. When he went to Bayern, it was really interesting because you had the two top wingers in the world at that time with Ribery and Robin, and he knew that. So instead of playing the same way, he really found ways to isolate those two guys on the outside, which I think goes towards his coaching brilliance. He knows how to get the guys who need the ball. And Man City is probably a little bit of a hybrid. And, I love that with Liverpool, we high press. I mean, that game is Mach 2 with your hair on fire. And, it's really fun to watch.
Yeah. So you hit on a couple of things. And I guess the first thing I'll kind of zero in on is their perception among fans. And I think they both have similar qualities in a lot of ways, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that Klopp gets a lot of credit for being this great man manager and having really close relationships with players and being able to get the best out of them. And maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves for his tactical analysis. And then on the flip side, I think Guardiola gets a lot of credit for his tactics and how much of a thinker he is and stuff, and probably doesn't get the credit he deserves for motivation and kind of the X factor of coaching. So I think that's interesting and something I've seen, and I watch a lot of as many interviews as I can with Klopp, especially being a Liverpool supporter, but Guardiola as well, just because, like we said, they're probably the two best managers in the world right now, um, and so the idea that a team could be as successful as both of those teams are and not have one piece of the puzzle, whether it's the tactical acumen that maybe Guardiola has the this not facade, but he certainly has that. But maybe people don't think Klopp does. Um, the idea that you could get to the top level without that and just being a motivator, I think is nonsense. Personally, I don't think you can get to the top level without having both qualities and more. Um, so that's an interesting comparison that I think a lot of people make, which is maybe unfair in my opinion. Um, but the other thing you talk about, and I'll kind of zero in on what I've learned from Pep about his style and how he plays, is there's this really great documentary called "Take the Ball, Pass the Ball." I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's about, I've seen parts of it, but it's about um, Pep, specifically his time at Barcelona during like 2009, 2011, or whenever that period was when they were dominating, and Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets and Messi and all of them were flying. Um, and he talks about the system, and then it's backed up by players when they do interviews and stuff. And there's this one super interesting interview with Thierry Henry. I think it's on Monday Night Football in England, and he talks about how there's this super kind of mathematical, this is exactly what you need to do for 3/4 of the field, and or the first 2/3, and then once you get to the final third, it's freedom. So like, you know, the wingers stay as wide as possible to help build and create space in the middle, and then once you get to the final third, that's when the creativity comes in, and the match winners can kind of step up and shine a little bit. And like last week, that's when he kind of gets out of their way and just says, "Okay, you guys go express your art," like you said. Um, and so I think that's super interesting. And again, I'm sure he's looking at the players that he has available to him and trying to see whether that's possible. And I think it has been at every team he's gone to. But part of the reason it has been is because he's been at Barcelona, Bayern, and now Man City, and there's no shortage of funds there. Um, so he can bring in the players to fit his system. But I think that's a super interesting way to look at it. Is just it's mathematical until you get to a point, and then it's chaos, for lack of a better term, or freedom or expression.
Well, there's a lot there. I would say that when you're, again, for me, coaching in USL League One or coaching in academies or, coaching a team in the A League in the 90s, like, when we did in Seattle, and you look at these teams, like even an MLS team, at times it's not complete. When you look at that Barcelona that you want to reference, or Liverpool now, or Man City, they're as close to complete. And if you look at the bench, the guy who's on might be better at executing those mathematical calculations as the guy that's on the field now. We find a lot that, every player in USL League One's a good soccer player. They obviously are. Whether they're making $1,000 a month or whatever it is that they get paid, they're getting paid to play a sport. That's a very tight percentage of people that get paid. And the point is, if you asked 3 midfielders in USL League One to do what Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta do, you're putting them in a situation where they're not going to be successful. And do you want them to? Do you want them to work on that? Do you want to aspire to that? Absolutely. But it took Spain 20 years and a whole generation of La Masia in order for them to do it, right? And that's doing it pretty much as well as it can be done with the best players on the planet. And they still, it reached a point where other teams started to go past in other ways. Pragmatic is really the term that I would use. When we play, low risk near your own goal, be smart about what you do, but in the same vein, you have to trust your players. So mathematical, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. I wouldn't necessarily say that Klopp is that way based on what I see. I think they probably take more risks, you know. The from my version of like the Barcelona, they could play a 6v3 rondo anywhere on the field, a 4v2 rondo. It doesn't matter if it's in their 6-yard box or in the end, and they're just so well trained and so technically gifted. The thing I love about both of these coaches, the reason that I think they're both great, is that they get the art out of guys when it's needed. Like whatever it is they do, and we don't know. We only get the versions that are put out there publicly, so we think we understand them, but I'm not sure that we do. Whatever it is that they do management-wise, for these guys to say, hey, go be the best at what you're already the best at, and you start to see these amazing things like what Ronaldo and Messi do on the field. It's like they're the greatest players, but they also needed leaders that said, go for it,
Yeah. Well, I could talk about this for hours. I'm sure you could too. But yeah, I know, and I'm hopeful that we'll do this again in the future. But I think now's probably a good time to cut it off for today. So again, I'd really appreciate you engaging in this conversation with me. I think it's really beneficial for me to hear from someone with different experiences, and obviously, more experience and better experience. So I really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
One thing I would recommend is another coach that I really like out there is Bielsa. And one of the things that he did was, you can find it online, he broke down the 5 or 6 different tactical formations. He thinks they're all variations of each other. He says there's basically 5, and he broke down one against another in this speech. And the dude's a wizard. I learned a lot in that. I don't agree with everything he said, but what a tactical education that was. So
yeah,
I appreciate
it. Check it out. Yeah, thanks so much. Alrighty, talk to you next time.
All right, man. Take care.
Alrighty.